Dewdrops. Welcome to the very first episode of Sipping Tea with me, Lorraine. I'm me, Lorraine. You can call me Rain. So on this channel, I do want to put out a disclaimer. There will be a lot of triggering topics that I talk about. Child abuse, sexual abuse, incest, depression, anxiety, other mental illnesses. I will cover a very wide range of topics. So they can be triggering for some. My hope is that if you are triggered, then something that I've said, I've done, I've grown through, I've lived through will help you along your journey as well. On this channel, I will be sharing with you guys tips, things I have healed from, the way I have gotten over things, different techniques, meditation, different things actually to help you deal with, grow through, overcome traumatizing topics. One of the main goals of this channel, the reason that I started this channel, is to finally be able to tell my story. I have been through a lot. I have lived through a lot. I have grown through a lot. And it is shames that I have carried with me for years. It is pain and heartbreak that I have carried with me for years, and I've always been afraid or ashamed of judgment to speak my truths out loud. Afraid that the people who I wanted to love me wouldn't love me because of these things that happened to me that I had no control over, but that still affects me today. On this channel, we are going to get down to the nitty-gritty. We are going to throw away all of these misconceptions that we've been fed, all of these lies we've been fed. We're going to heal and grow and learn how to love ourselves and learn how to care for ourselves through our growing periods. We all have growing periods, and this is the next step in mine. So I welcome you. Follow me on this journey to self-healing, self-discovery, self-love, and self-care. And I'm hoping that you too will be able to heal and eventually have the courage to tell your story. That's the goal of this channel. I want everyone to be able to look themselves in the mirror and say, I love me in spite of. So let's chat. Today's topic is unconditional love. Let me tell you a story. When I was 4 years old, my mother was addicted to drugs, as most parents were. In the 1980s, that was just the thing in the Black community at that time. So my mother would often be gone, and she would leave me home with the rest of her sisters, her mother, and their children. And I was the darkest grandchild. And my family is Irish and Black. So most of my family is very fair-skinned, and I was not. I have always been brown. And actually, I am a lot lighter now than I was when I was younger. I knew at 4 years old I was different because my family would tell me. My cousins would tease me about being dark. I was called Blackie and Spook Juice and dirty because I was really brown and they were lighter than me. Um, I was not the favorite grandchild. I was the least favorite grandchild, and they took the opportunity to tell me and let me know that on a daily basis. I grew up being brown, hating my brown skin because I was too dark. I always said I was too dark. And so being too dark also meant being ugly and not pretty and not attractive. Um, and so I struggled with self-esteem for a long time because I couldn't love what I seen in the mirror because no one else could love it. One day, me and my cousin, she's only a few months older than me, we were outside playing, and I was playing with a toy and she took it from me, and I snatched it back from her, and she said, "Blackie, that's why you black." And I said, "Well, that's why you white, whitey." And I knew I was going to be in trouble because I had insulted the favorite grandchild. And she ran in the house and she was crying and she told my grandmother. And my grandmother had my older cousin come out and grab me, drag me in the house, and she was yelling and screaming about who did I think I was and where did I get off talking to, my cousin that way. And they put me in the oven and closed the door. And I was beating on the oven door trying to get out. And I can remember hearing my grandmother say, "You already black. You can't get no blacker. The oven ain't gonna burn you no more." And I was terrified and I was frightened. And so many years later, I am still claustrophobic. I cannot be in dark, small spaces because it always triggers that memory of being put in the oven because I insulted my cousin. And although I had did no more than what she had did, I had said no more than what she had said, I was severely punished for that. And I never forgot that. Growing up in a family, in a household where you are unloved and your mother is unloved, that trickles down to you. I was never going to be good enough. I was never going to gain the love and affection that I needed and that I was seeking from my family. But I loved them unconditionally. There was no conditions to my love. They treated me bad. They talked about me. They mentally and verbally abused me all the time. And yet I still could not hate them. I still could not love them. I still loved them. I still was trying to gain their acceptance. I still was trying to gain their favor. All throughout my childhood, my teenage years, even into my adulthood, I was still trying to do things and say things and be things to get these people to love me unconditionally as I had loved them. But it was not meant to be. Every situation I've ever been in, every obstacle I've ever had to overcome, there has always been a gem to help me along the way. When I was a little girl and my mother would always be gone, she would be on drug binges, drinking binges, she would just be missing for days. The neighbor, she would come and she would get me and she would do my hair and she would change my clothes and make sure I was clean. And the entire time she would tell me how beautiful I was, how smart I was, how, I was going to grow up and be somebody. I was special. That's what she used to say. And I just could not understand why she couldn't see what everyone else saw back home. I was not special. I was not pretty. I was ugly. I was dark. I was too dark. My mother was a drug addict. She was not a good person. My mother was this and that. My mother was a liar. She was, and I was constantly told I would grow up to be just like her. And she obviously hadn't done much positive in her life so far. So, that was my destiny. My destiny was to grow up and be just like my mother. As my grandmother used to say, she was a fuck up. And so every time she would come and get me, and she would do my hair and change my clothes, and she just would go on and on and on about how beautiful I was, how smart I was, how pretty I was, how, I was going to be somebody. I was special, and I was going to be somebody when I grew up. And somewhere, somehow, I started to believe it, even just a little bit. And I kept that. I kept that in my heart and my mind. Years and years after she passed away, I remember her words. She helped me believe that maybe I was beautiful. Maybe I was special. Maybe I was going to be something amazing when I grew up, and not a nothing or a nobody. I had been deemed and destined that I was going to be from the time I could remember. She made me believe that it was a different alternative for me, that I could choose to be beautiful, special, be somebody different when I grew up than what my mother was. I was not destined to be or to follow in my mother's footsteps simply because I was her child. I could be something better. I could be different. I could be more. And so I want to say that there is always, always, always someone who is placed in your path to help you see a different way, to introduce you to a different path. And there have been so many people put in my path that has helped me along the way. And they have been small to some, but to me, it was huge and helped shape me and helped me believe in something more. So today I want to pose the question to you. When do unconditional love stop? When do you stop giving unconditional love to those who cannot or will not return that same love to you? I remember growing up feeling so alone all the time. I was alone. My mother was not a good mother. She was strung out on drugs. There were a bunch of other things going on. And so my mother just was not there. My mother, whatever reason that my grandmother disliked my mother so much, that trickled down to me. And I never understood why. I never understood how I could be so hated and unloved simply by being. I was a child. So I grew up with no love. I grew up thinking and believing I was unlovable. And that carried me into relationships in my, teenager years, in my adult years, because I was still trying to get that love, that acceptance from people who simply could not or would not give me that. How many others, how many of you guys out there are still seeking the approval, the acceptance of family members, of parents, of friends, who has always shown you that they would never be able to provide those things for you? Yet you still voluntarily subject yourself to be hurt, to be ridiculed, to be talked about, to be put down. When do you say enough is enough? How do you overcome that? How do you learn to love yourself when everyone around you is telling you you're unlovable? You're not good enough. You're not worthy to be loved. You're not worthy to be taken care of. When do you finally say enough is enough? I will love myself. I will care for myself. I accept me. And how do you get there? How do you learn to love you? How do you learn to accept you? Right? Because that's the first step. Learning that you are lovable. Learning that you are desirable. Learning that you are worthy. You are worthy to be loved. You are worthy for someone to love you simply for who you are. Not for anything that you do, not for anything that you say, but simply because of who you are. There comes a point in life when unconditional love must stop. When you must stop giving your unconditional love to those who constantly hurt you and turn that unconditional love inward. Unconditionally love you. And once you are able to unconditionally love you, it won't matter anymore whether those people who you've been trying to get their acceptance and their love for years, it won't matter anymore that they still don't love you, that they still never show that they love you, that they, still do things to harm you, to cause you harm, or, it has to come a point where we say enough is enough. I reached that point a couple years ago. Yes, it took this long for me to reach that point. I will tell you what my breaking point was, though. A member in my family has children by a man who raped me for years. He raped me. And I was pregnant. I had just had my oldest daughter, and I had a baby shower, and they were all there. They came, they threw the baby shower, actually. And the topic came up about him. And this family member looked me in my face and said I was a liar. She would never believe me. It didn't matter who else came forward and said that this man had did the same thing to them. It didn't happen to me. And if it did happen to me, I wanted it to happen to me. That was my breaking point. That crushed my everything. That destroyed something inside of me. I went home that night, and I don't think I've ever cried that much the way I cried that day, that night. And I woke up the next morning and my eyes were so swollen from crying all night, I couldn't open them. And at the time, I shared a space with a good friend of mine. We were roommates. And so I had no way, to explain to her why I kept going back. I had no way to explain why I continued to allow these people who has always hurt me to continue to hurt me even well into my adulthood. Be patient with yourself. I cannot tell you how many times I have cried and been angry and been upset with myself because I feel like I should be further along than I am in my journey of healing, in my journey of forgiveness, in my journey of loving me, in my journey of growth. You have to love you, accept you right where you are. That's the first step in learning to love you unconditionally. Being patient with yourself, being patient with your growth, with your healing process. This is not one size fit all. There is no book. There is no roadmap to healing. Your journey is your journey. And no matter how long it takes you to get there, as long as you're still working towards getting there, you're exactly where you are supposed to be, doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing in that moment. When it is time for you to move past that moment, you will. But until you get to where you want to be gentle with yourself. Love yourself even in that moment. Love yourself through the next one. You're on the right path. You've taken the steps to start the healing process. It is not an easy journey. It is not a pain-free journey. But you have decided to take the journey. Here is my self-love and self-care tips, how I take care of Mila every day. Baths have been my saving grace. It helps me to get in touch with myself. So oftentimes in the bathtub, I will cry, I will scream, I will release all of the stress, anger, fear, shame, whatever it is that I'm feeling at that time, whatever it is that I'm going through at that time. I take a bath and I let everything come to the forefront of my mind. Everything, how I'm feeling, the things I'm thinking, why I'm feeling that way, why I'm thinking that way. And I don't stop the feelings. I let them come. If that means I cry, I cry. If that means, I scream or I'm angry, I allow those feelings and emotions to come forward. I do not suppress them. And once I've worked through and thought about everything that I was going through, everything that was stressing me out or holding me down or holding me back, when I let the plug out of the tub, I let all those things go down the drain with it. And so now I can start fresh and I can tackle a new problem, and I have the space and capacity to deal with something more. Because a lot of times we get overwhelmed with what we are dealing with. The past comes up at the most inopportune times when you're already stressed about something that's happening in your current day or you're already angry or upset or hurting about something that has happened recently, and then here comes the past saying, hey, you didn't deal with this, you need to deal with this now. And you can quickly get overwhelmed. And so when I'm feeling like a wilted flower, when I'm feeling like blah, I take a bath, and they are healing to me. They are healing for me. They are soothing for me. And once I release all of that pain, anger, shame, anguish, whatever it is that I was dealing with, I let it go down the drain. And when I get out that tub, I carefully look at myself in the mirror. I pat dry my skin. I take very good care of me. I pamper me, because these are the things that I need to make me feel better. So in that moment, I make sure to only think loving thoughts about me, new goals, new dreams that I want to embark on, different, new ways to grow, to be better, to wake up and be a better me. And then I make lotions and body butters, and I take these very moisturizing creams, and I gently, lather my body with lotions and creams, and my skin is soft, it's supple, and I feel good about me. And sometimes that's all you need, is to be able to feel good about you for a moment, for a second. What we focus on is what is going to grow. So I try my best to be mindful of what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, how I'm taking care of me. So that's one of the biggest things that I do for me. What are some of the things that you do for you? Share, comment, let us know what other ways you indulge in self-care, self-love, self-pampering. I would love to hear it. I'm always open and always looking for new things and new ideas and new ways to love me. So, see you guys next time. Bye.